And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly mini-sode where we dig into things that we've been watching, reading, and playing recently. I'm Terry.
Multimedia experience. I'm Mary Beth, and this week we are talking another incredible prequel, Murder and Mystery and Mayhem, a terrifying home invasion novel, Terry becomes a terrible cult leader, and my boyfriend's back and you're gonna be in trouble.
Hey now, my boy. Okay. I don't want to get sued.
Real quick, I have to talk about my sleep paralysis experience that I tweeted about because between the two parts of it, it's very relevant to you, Terry, but I texted you about it. So the other night I had my first sleep paralysis experience, and it was the worst ever. Basically, I'll tell you my perception of it, then I'll tell you Steve's perception of it, which is even funnier.
Oh, God.
So I was asleep and woke up, I thought, and I saw a giant black spider on my ceiling. And like, no details. It was like a shadow spider, but I knew it was huge. And all I could do, I was frozen in bed and saw it crawling across the ceiling. And I woke, like, before anything happened in terms of it touching me or it getting on me, it didn't. But I don't know what, it just snapped out of it. I don't fucking know. I didn't wake up necessarily. But Steve told me I was snoring so loud and he poked me. And I think because he poked me, the sleep paralysis triggered because he was trying to wake me up. Because I distinctly remember turning my head and seeing his eyes open. And I was like, is this just part of the dream? And he was trying to wake me up to stop snoring.
You saved me from my sleep paralysis. I just wanted you to stop snoring.
Yeah, I know. And I didn't know any of that until the morning where I was like, Steve, I had sleep paralysis. He's like, wait a second. And we connected the dots. And then he showed me a video of me snoring like a goddamn chainsaw.
You took a video?
I was like, oh my God. So yeah, that's my fun story of sleep paralysis and not finding out. I knew I kind of snored sometimes, but wow. Holy shit. It's can fucking fun. Snore. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I was just like, and you know what's fucked? In my head, while it was happening, I was like, is this real or not? It was so fucked. It was the most uncomfortable, to all of you who had that growing up and continue to experience it, fuck, I'm so sorry. I always knew it was terrifying, but it's fucking horrible. Why do our brains have to do us like that?
I know, right?
Just trying to sleep, just trying to do the thing good for our bodies, and it's weaponized against us, so...
Yeah, I had never experienced it until 6 months ago, and it was the very first time I'd ever experienced it, and that was thank God I didn't have spiders in it, but that was absolutely terrifying.
When I woke up, I was like, I have to tell Terry. It's like, Terry has to know this.
I mean, when you woke up, were you able to realize that you were having a dream?
When I woke up, in the morning, I remember. Okay. But it was one of those things where, it all kind of, melded together, dream logic UI, so I wasn't really sure. I think I, kind of thought I was dreaming, but wasn't quite sure. And, I was looking around with my... And, we have a vent, and the vent was a giant black hole, and I was like, something's gonna crawl out of it. And I had watched mortuary assistant videos before I went to bed that night too, so I think that probably had something to do with it a little bit. So yeah, it's a nice little nasty soup.
Because whenever I had a dream about spiders, I would immediately jump up, turn on a light, and be looking for the spiders because I would think it was real. Okay,
I did not do that. I do remember waking up and feeling very itchy, though. Just being but yeah.
That's gnarly. I don't like that for you.
Sucked shit. But what didn't suck shit were some of the movies that I know that we watched this week. So let's talk about another incredible prequel that we watched.
I mean, we both saw this movie a while ago, and we have been champing at the bit to be able to talk about it. Of course, the embargo came up the day that our interview with the director popped on Monday. And if you haven't listened to that, go listen to our incredible discussion with William Brent Bell, the director of Orphan First Kill. Because this movie should not work. It should not be as good as it is. And yet, here we are. a genuine surprise of 2022, I would say.
Genuine, I agree. It was one of those movies when I heard it was coming out, I was like, oh, this is going to be terrible.
It's going to be hot trash.
It's going to be hot trash. And like, it's just inevitable. You're like, Orphan was perfect the way it was. Listen to our episode where we talk about Orphan. It's incredible. It's a camp masterpiece. It's so good. How the fuck do you make another one with the same kid, like who's 25 years old now, et cetera, et cetera? Well, William Brent Bell did it with an incredible script written by not William Brent Bell, but regardless, the script is just like it takes what made the first one so good and really understands it, and so does but so does Bell, because Bell, as we talked about in our episode, is a huge fan of the first movie, which I think is a huge like benefit sometimes of like you understand it and what it's supposed to accomplish. The writer was David Coggeshall, so his script paired with William Brent Bell's direction, based on
a story by the original writers from the original movie.
So, well, Terry, okay, this is a prequel, but what happens here with our girl Esther?
So it starts deceptively simple enough where you're with Esther in the Sarin Institute, which is what we see in her Bible at the end of towards the end of the original Orphan.
Yeah,
she escapes. She pretends to be Esther, the missing daughter of rich family in the United States who have been looking for Esther for a very long time. 4 years, I think. 4 or 5 years, something like that.
4 or 5 years, yeah.
So she had trolled the web, found someone that looked similar to her, and passes herself off as their long lost daughter. You think you kind of know where the story is going, and then it kind of takes a couple twists and turns. One that had us both cackling in utter delight. And it turns into a movie that is not a repeat of the original, which is what I thought we were going to get with this film. Because what else are we going to get with a creepy kid that gets inserted into a wealthy family, which we've already seen before in the first movie? And it's another one of those where it's like, it's a prequel in that it takes place before that one. And you can kind of see some things where she might have gotten some of her idiosyncrasies in the first movie, but like it doesn't do that thing where we're trying to explain the killer or explain things in the past. Like it's its own movie that happened to take place before the first one, and I appreciated that as someone that doesn't really like prequels.
I agree, and I think what was before they're even like this story kind of like changes a little bit with the twists. I think the way that this story understands that now you're in on the joke, or not the joke, you're in on the gag, it does more to play with that knowledge and you seeing like what she must have been doing in the first one to like keep up the facade, and like that leads to some great moments, I think, before we even get to that. But I love just seeing her trying to figure out how to be a kid, which I think is, and it lends itself well to Isabel Fuhrman playing Esther again, but as a 25-year-old, and like that. Again, camp decision, but I respect it because they go whole hog into it. I mean, the way they do like the full on practical effects with it, and like how everyone had to wear platform boots when shooting. I just think that's fucking incredible. Like, yeah, it's silly, but like fucking dedicated to the bit, went for it,
dedicated,
and I'm glad that Isabel Fuhrman is in it because she's incredible. So it's so silly and so fun, and just like it's just, again, it's better than it has any right to be, and I love William Brent Bell for that. So check it out. It's out on Paramount Plus, digital, and in theaters.
Limited theaters.
It's actually playing at my theater near me.
Oh, is it really?
Which is wild. On Friday, the day this episode comes out, the 19th. Yeah, y'all. If you like the first one, you should definitely check it out. And Julia Stiles is in it. That's great.
Oh, she's great. She's great. Another movie that we both saw this weekend, Murder, Mystery, and Mayhem. Mary Beth, what movie did we watch?
Want to play Bodies? We watched.
Only if we get to slap each other first. Like, who plays a game that starts off with beating the shit out of your friends? Like,
toxic friend groups who probably shouldn't be friends anymore, but only are friends because they're all rich and bored history. And do a lot of drugs together and have a lot of shared trauma.
Yeah. Boy. So you want to tell us a little bit about what Bodies is about?
Yeah.
Don't know?
So Bodies is the latest A24 horror whodunit. It is not a slasher. It is a whodunit, everyone. It's very Agatha Christie and Then They Were None vibes. I think that's very important to say off the bat, because I think a lot of us thought it was a slasher, and it's not. And that's not a bad thing, but just like just change expectations, because you're not going to get what you want. But basically, there's a hurricane coming. It's a big hurricane party, and a bunch of 20-somethings are having a hurricane party in one of their dad's house, Pete Davidson's dad's ginormous house in the middle of nowhere. And Amandla Steinberg, who plays Sophie, and her new girlfriend, B, played by Maria Bakalova, are going to the party, and they surprise everyone by showing up. And as the storm starts, and they all, you kind of start getting all the kind of an idea of the dynamics going on here, someone dies, and it kind of all goes downhill from there, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on and who did it and why. Yeah, what'd you think?
I absolutely love this movie. I laughed so much at this movie. I thought it was very funny. I thought the dialogue was very crisp, and it moved along. It reminded me, without getting into spoilers, it reminded me a little bit of like April Fool's Day. Like, I feel like this isn't a long run of sort of like rich people get together in a house and it's funny and shenanigans follow suit. This isn't, I'm not saying that this is exactly like April Fool's Day, because it's not, but it gave me that same kind of vibe that we got from that film.
Yeah.
I don't know. I absolutely loved it. I loved, my favorite character was Alice, played by Rachel Sennott from like, Shiva Baby. The things that she gets to say at the end, toward like in specific points, she has like little, not monologues, but short monologues in a way that are just like, I just was dying. I went in, and she's a podcaster, and no one has listened to her fucking podcast.
She was like, it's really hard work to do podcasting. I was like, was fucking cackling. I was like, girl, you right. You have to have a Google Calendar and get guests. And I was like, she's not wrong.
She's not wrong. I was laughing, and everyone was kind of laughing in derision in the theater. But I was like, no, you don't understand how much work this is.
Well, and I think that's something I really appreciated about this movie, was that, like, the trailer obviously plays up that it's making fun of, like, younger 20-somethings, like, Gen Z kids, but, like so a little bit younger than me. But the movie actually is not as, like, poo-pooing the generation as the trailer would make you think. There's a lot more empathy in this movie, and it's a lot more, like, general toxicity in friend groups, and doesn't actually, like, isn't totally, like, targeting Gen Zers for being like vapid. And because I think that's what the trailer really focuses on, but like, you know, a lot of he's like, why are you gaslighting me? But in a lot of those moments in the trailer actually are in moments where the term kind of does make sense, though. It's not like they're just saying it to like get a cackle because it's internet lingo. Like, it's actually so I think that surprised me quite a bit in a good way, and that these characters aren't as vapid as I think people might go in expecting. Like, they actually have some depth, and there's a lot of empathy that's generated from all of them, even though they're all kind of shitty. Like, it doesn't make them total caricatures. Like, they're more realized characters, which then leads to one of the problems I had with the movie. I liked it a lot. I had a lot of fun. I think they were just some character beats that I wish there was more of. Like, I wanted to know more about B. Like, there were some moments with her where I was like, what the fuck is going on? And so I think because the movie does such a good job with this kind of establishing empathy with these characters, when it falls flat with some of the, like, backstories and things they introduce, it's disappointing, because it just feels like it's leading up to that. And again, I know it's hard in a movie that's very, like, it's an ensemble cast. So, like, you know, you're not really... B is, like, the audience proxy, but, you know, we're seeing everybody's character. So that's, I think, what the one big problem I had was I think I wanted a little bit more, but I also know doing a little bit more would have complicated things. So it was, like, towing that line, and I understand. Like, I get it.
Well, I think a lot of the mystery comes from the fact that we don't really know these people. And so it becomes it could be anyone's motive, right?
Yeah, which I liked, because I was sitting there just like, what the like, it was very much, because you're going to play who is what is going on, like, and they introduce obviously so many like red herrings, and the script does a really good job of keeping you on your toes about like who, what's the fuck is going on, who is doing this and why.
I was happy to see Chase Sue Wonders in it because she was in an HBO series that I covered with Joe Lipsett called Generation that got canceled after one season, and she was one of my favorite newfound actors in that. So I was really happy to see her in this because
she was really good in this movie.
I really
Everyone was
enjoyed her
really
as
good
Emma.
in this movie. This ensemble is incredible. Like I was telling someone, I was like, the concept of Pete Davidson annoys me, like him as a figure in pop culture phenomenon. But like he's a pretty talented performer. Like he's
a talented performer. I still think he's sexy.
He's dirtbag sexy. Like I will admit that. Like he definitely is. But like.
Well, I thought it was funny when he's like, I look like I fuck.
I know. And
I'm like,
so I saw this at 5 p.m. on Friday. So there's 4 people in the theater. I was laughing by myself at these things. Like I was the crazy woman that was like dying laughing at Pete Davidson saying, I look like fuck. I look like I fuck. And like a hoodie and Gucci slides and with socks.
He does.
And I'm like,
he does though. So, like Pete Davidson himself. That's what I think. That's like his.
Is he good at that? I don't know.
Oh, I think he is.
You think so?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Do you think he likes going down on women? Like, do you think that's something? Well, I don't know why I'm asking you this question, but like, I feel like he does like eating pussy, right? Does he do that?
I do think he's a very sexual being. I mean, let's be honest.
It's so funny because he does not to me just does not look like a sexual being.
I don't know. He exudes that energy. I mean, Ariana talked about his, big dick energy, which I find that, I don't know, I find that term problematic, but yeah, I think he probably gave Kim Kardashian a good 9-month rebound. I think
good for both of them. You know what? Mostly him. I don't really care about her, but good for him, I guess. I don't know. All of it's toxic and weird, but anyway.
New podcast idea. Does he fuck? Where we go down pop culture people and
Patreon? Anyway.
Yeah.
And Lee Pace is also in this movie, speaking of people who fuck.
Which, by the way, though, again, contrasting this, that the characters, if you're looking at this as like, Gen Z or vapid or whatever, he is just as vapid as them, and he's my age. He's 40-something.
Yeah. It's impressive. I think it shows that you can do like a Gen Z targeted. So the other thing though is that I say Gen Z, but like, I don't know. I'm 29, so I am a millennial. A lot of them are acting also like I don't know. They're in that weird gray area of like older Gen Zers, younger millennials. So I was watching it just like, I know people like this that are like younger than me, obviously. Like we all do, but like it's funny because I'm like, they're not that much younger than me, which can unpack that however I want, but like
I mean, I had to actually go look up their ages because when people were talking about them this being a Gen Z movie, I was like, I know that Chase is young because she was in Generation and she's very young in that. But like I was like, some of these people were born mid 90s, I think. Like I had to look it up. I was
close to Pete Davidson is close to my age, if not my age. Like we are very similar in age, and they don't really talk about like college. Like they don't really set a scene for like kind of markers of how old they are, other than like they are on their own ish, but also just like rich kids. So who knows what that, whatever that means. But yeah, bodies. Directed by a woman, written by a woman. Helena Rain directed it, and then it's based on a script by Kristen Rupinian. I'm so sorry if I said that wrong, but women directed and written. Just a little added cherry on top. So check it out, friends. But changing the subject to you being a terrible cult leader.
Okay, so Devolver Digital is a game publisher, and they have published a bunch of games that I absolutely love. Inscription was that we talked to the developer of that earlier this year. Death's Door, which was one of my favorite games from last year as well. Like they put out some really good games, and their latest is Cult of the Lamb, and this is a game in which you play a lamb that dies and is saved by some eldritch horror that is trapped by these bishops that have become corrupt and are keeping him, and he wants you to be his little cult leader to build your influence, build the influence of him, and eventually kill the bishops that are keeping him imprisoned. And so it's part sim, where you are building your little cult. You build places for your cult members to go shit, because otherwise they shit and vomit all over the place and you have to clean up after them. You'll build a cook pit to cook food for them. You build a stockade when they're getting a little too mouthy and their loyalty to you has dropped, so you toss them in the stockade and re-educate them. You hold giant rituals that can either be like, I'm going to sacrifice you to get power for myself, or we're going to do a big feast because you all are starving. You have to balance sort of like their devotion to you, as well as the cleanliness of the cult space, as well as their hunger. And you're basically making them forced labor to go, mine things, cut down things, do timber, all that kind of stuff, so you can build more things and unlock more things. And there's that part of it. And then there's also a roguelite part of it, in which you go into dungeons to get more cult members, to kill things, to get more bodies that you use to do your rituals with, to eventually kill the bishops and unlock, save your demonic eldritch horror god that you are ultimately worshipping. And you can do things in this like murder a cult member and then harvest his meat and serve it to your cultists so that they're now, cannibals. You can do all of these forced labor things where like you're forcing them to work through 3 days of no rest in order to build up. Like, there's just so much that you can do in this game, and it's very funny. It's very lighthearted, has a cute art style. And it's also tackling some big things like organized religion and capitalism within that, as well as being about serving up dead cultists to your other cultists. It's very entertaining, and I love it.
Yeah. I'm so excited. Okay, I was very excited that you brought this because I really want to play this. Mm-hmm. And I was just talking about this with Steve before recording, and so this makes me want to play it even more. I'm so excited because it's like cute. It's like cutesy too. Like it's got like a cutesy aesthetic to it that is very funny. Just in terms of what the rest of the game is about.
Yeah, I got my roommate hooked on it, and she's even further than I am. Because she downloaded it on Sunday and she's just been playing it nonstop.
How are you playing it? On PC?
I'm playing it on PlayStation.
On PlayStation,
but it's it's everything. It's everywhere. It's PC, PlayStation,
gonna get it on
Xbox,
my
Switch.
Mm-hmm. I'm traveling.
She's playing it on the Switch. So.
Oh, fuck yeah. Okay, cool. That's how I'm going to play it too. Someone described it as like Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, but evil. And like, I am a Stardew Valley slut. So the fact that you could run a cult plus like kind of have that management sim situation, I'm like, hello.
It's a little bit more simplistic, I would say, than Stardew Valley in terms of
that's fair with like the other elements going on.
It's not going to take you like this isn't a game that you're going to probably spend 50, 60 hours, building your farm. It's probably a 15-hour game, I would say, based on what I've seen so far. But it's a lot of fun, and there's always something to do, and the sim part of it is fun. The roguelite dungeon is simple but also fun. It's a good time. I really recommend it. I think it'd be great on the Switch. I kind of wish I had it on the Switch or some portable thing so I could like play it in bed before I go to bed.
Fuck yeah. Cool. Oh, I'm so excited to play it.
I'm really excited to hear what you think of it. But switching gears once more, terrifying home invasion novel. I know what this is, and I'm really excited to hear about it because I can't wait to read it.
Okay, so this book, actually, Eric LaRocca talked about this book. Did he ever talk about it to us after recording or on the recording?
No, he did it while recording.
Okay.
He brought it up. We asked him what he was looking forward to, and he mentioned this book.
That's right. Okay, cool. So I was lucky enough to read the book. It's called Anybody Home? ? By Michael J. Seidlinger. It's out on this. It came out on the 16th of August, so the day we're recording. This book is it's fucking cursed. Like, Eric was not wrong when he said that reading this book is like reading something that you need to burn in a fire immediately. So the book is basically a seasoned home invader is writing an instruction manual to new home invaders and instructing them on how to stalk, find, and kill their victims. And it is like, it's a found footage book. It's almost like you're reading the Poughkeepsie tapes. So that's either a ringing endorsement or an absolute fucking do not fucking ever. It's more like reading Funny Games, but like, Poughkeepsie, because it's got a lot of winks and nods to Funny Games and some of like The Strangers. There's a lot of winks and nods to those movies, but it's hard to read a lot of because it's so fucking chilling in terms of how he's talking about, like, I want to talk to this author so bad to be like, what was that like to occupy this headspace? It's all written in first person and he's writing it as an expert and passing down this knowledge. And I'm just like, it's fucking cool and it's terrifying. And it's just like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Like that's how creepy this book is. I'm not totally finished with it, but I've read a good chunk of it, and Eric's right. That book is it's going to make you deeply uncomfortable. That's another book that's making me glad I'm reading horror stuff again, like going back, like continuing to go back to reading horror because of like what you can accomplish with the written word in horror is just so fucking impressive. This is just like a really big testament to that. There's a really cool thing he does in the book where he keeps talking about the camera and in referencing the like always make sure like what the camera sees and what you don't, as like in referencing almost like what other people are seeing after the fact, because a lot of this is also talking about getting famous and like what other people are going to see and how they are going to perceive and talk about your work as an artist, aka a fucking murderer. I know it's fucked up. And so like he's always
talking. Going to put us on a watch list.
Yeah, I seriously, it's like all about that, and it's and like talking about like how people are going to talk about you and like what they're going to see, and using your instincts and like tapping. It's just so well written, but it's gross. Like. It's not even like, I haven't gotten, I mean, unless I've missed something, it's not super graphic necessarily, but it doesn't need to be because like what is being described is absolutely horrifying and it is my worst nightmare. And I'm like once again, never have been happier to live in the 15th floor of a high-rise apartment building. Because I think that's the only reason I can read that book right now is to know that like, well, it's a little less likely when I'm in an apartment building, but it does have me looking over my shoulder a little bit. But yeah, so I highly recommend it if you're looking for something really creepy to read.
Hell yeah.
It's out now, so yeah, please check it out. And again, it's if you're a found footage person, you should check it out too. Like it's really interesting how it takes the idea of found footage and viewing footage and like watching tapes and puts that in a book form. It's really, really cool. I have two sticky notes that I have, two kinds of sticky notes I'm using. One for like quotes and going back for like other things, and the other part is research for found footage stuff because I'm like, this is academically really fascinating. So, yes, highly recommend. Anybody home? ?
And who's that by?
It is by Michael J. Seidlinger. Check it out. And then shifting gears once again from like horrifying home invasion novel to horror comedy from the 80s. Which horror comedy did we experience this week?
Well, it's time to wake up and smell the coffee, Muffy. We are talking Night of the Creeps, which is, I had to write that line down because that line just cracked me up. This movie about parasites from space that turn people into zombies, and you can see direct lineage from this to Slither, I would say. Agreed. But I'm more curious because I've seen this. This is my second or third time watching this film, but I know this was your first, so I want to know, what did you think of this one, Mary Beth? I
was not expecting it to be so technically cool looking, with like the zombies specifically, but I also I loved it. It was creepier than I thought. I always go to the horror comedy as expecting more comedy than horror, so I'm always very like pleasantly surprised when I'm wrong about that assumption. I should probably stop thinking that, but like, here we are. But the beginning had me rolling because once again, for the second week in a row, we have a movie starting off like in space, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, what is this? What is happening?
Rejects from Star Wars running down hallways, shooting lasers.
It's fun, and Tom Atkins is really good in this movie.
Thrill me.
I think that there's like some really clever moments in this, especially because I am not a huge fan of like sorority college massacre movies. Like they're not, especially in the 80s, they had that formula. But like this movie, I think has charmed me enough to not be annoyed with that as much. I think it plays with those expectations really well and makes fun of it a lot. And also the slugs and the gore and the effects and stuff. I think on top of that, I think it was just like, mwah.
I loved how it started in space and then it starts in 1959 and it goes into black and white. I love that we have this colorful space battle happening and then it's black and white 1950s as we sort of like are making fun of that sort of like B movie from the 50s with like, there's a criminal on the loose, criminally insane, all points bulletin, he's escaped from blah 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 blah, he has an axe. Like we're seeing like urban legends from like, you know, that kind of time period that you would hear about Lover's Lane and some insane person with an axe. Like it's making fun of that while adding like a science fiction visage to it. And then we cut to 1980s. I think that this movie is a lot of fun. I think it's queer. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this movie is queer because
Tell me more about it.
The main two characters are Chris and JC, and JC is sort of like the best friend to Chris and is like talking about how he just wants Chris to be happy and just wants Chris to like find love and all that kind of stuff. And there's like this little exchange between the two of them that's a little like playful. You could read it one of two ways, like straight guys that are sort of like, oh, you want to fuck me, like just kind of joking around, that kind of stuff. But there's a little bit of truth to it. And there's a moment later on where JC unfortunately dies and he leaves a message to Chris. And the last bit of the message is, I love you. And I was like, ooh, I think there is some unrequited love going on here with this character.
Definitely. Well, did they explain why he's using the crutches?
I think he said something about an accident at one point. Okay,
because I was going to say, like, we have a disabled character in a horror movie, and it's not, like, a total joke, which I love. Because, again, like, it's very rare for us to see that even today. So, like, having a character who was disabled, like, physically disabled was kind of cool. And I now that I think about it, he's got, like, the nice wingman friend / acts, like, actually in love with the friend vibes. And I dig that a lot.
He's also, I think the actor that plays JC is a little cutie. Like he is
a little cutie.
And it's a shame that he wasn't in a whole lot of movies. Like he's been in a number of things, but like not a whole lot. And I'm like, what happened to you, dude? Because he was my favorite part of this movie, to be honest.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was like, I think he was the least cheesy, like a little bit more authentic. Like, not cheesy, but you know, like he felt like the most authentic performance besides Tom Atkins' character. I will say, when Tom Atkins is sitting there like telling the murder story and he goes, I'm sorry, why are you confessing this murder to me? And then it cuts to the fucking corpse coming out from underneath the floorboards. I'm like, this movie is everything to me.
I love that it mashes up so many different things too. Like his character is complete noir. Like he is a noir detective. Like he's slamming back his bourbon, you know, he like is saying I love that he keeps answering the phone, thrill me, and like everything about him is like just entertain me, just thrill me. And he's it's a noir detective mashed up with a zombie movie, mashed up with a science fiction movie, mashed up with a horror comedy and a sororities. Like there's so much going on here that I love it.
I love it.
And Dick Miller, random Dick Miller sighting.
I also just love like whenever like the little slugs are just like scooching away. I just like think it's so much like just that adds comedy to me a little bit, like a really good visual gag, because they do, the effects look really good, but it's just funny. I think it's just me loving it when people look away and the little buggies are like and they like, you know, it just something about that in movies tickles my brain in a way that it's like, aha, yes, I like when that happens. So very good movie, and I cannot wait to rewatch Slither to be like Leonardo DiCaprio pointing meme.
Also, I have to give a shout out because TikTok has ruined me, because there is a moment here where the song Put Your Head on My Shoulder comes on, and I was like expecting a transition as in TikTok. I don't know if you've ever seen those TikToks, but like it's very popular on gay TikTok, where like they'll be put your head on my, and then like the light changes and it's like nighttime and it's someone is shirtless standing there like trying to be all sexy.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was also just like, oh, well, that's what the actual song is, not the TikTok remix of like people being scary and creepy.
And sexy at the same time. Yeah. But the real horror of this movie, though, is those fucking dorm rooms. That dorm room that Chris and JC, that's like literally like 2 futons and a desk and like a little galley hallway in between. Like that is literally where they're sleeping. I was like, wow.
What was your college dorm situation like, though?
Oh my God, my college dorm situation was I was in a college dorm that had not been refurbished since probably the 60s. We had like these, I'm pretty sure, made on campus bunk beds that were like that were not sturdy. And my roommate, I remember my funniest college situation is me having a roommate that had a girlfriend, and all of a sudden she started spending the night. He was in the top bunk, I was in the bottom bunk, and she started sleeping up there. And I woke up at 3 a.m. to the entire fucking bed shaking and her going at 3 a.m. as the entire bed is shaking. And you're like, what do I do? I really wanted to get up and go, earthquake, and shout and go running out, but like, I was just like, what do I do in this? Because this is awkward. Yeah. I was put into the jock dorm, and I don't know if you can see me, but I am not a fucking jock.
College is, I never understood what they were like, yeah, like just put a bunch of 18 to 20-year-olds in like a giant building in rooms together and like see what happens. I'm like, why are we continuing this fuck social experiment? Like we don't. I lived in a dorm that after a hurricane, because I went to school in the water in Maryland, and there was a really bad hurricane, and it exacerbated the black mold situation so badly in my dorm and in a couple others, we had to evacuate the dorms, and they moved us onto a fucking boat for 2 months. Have I ever told you this story?
No. A fucking boat?
Oh my God.
No.
So TLDR, everyone look this up, St. Mary's College of Maryland cruise ship. Like, I was interviewed on NPR about this. Like, they...
What?
Oh yeah, no, they did. So it's my first semester of college. Like, this was my first semester of college. And they found the black mold, and they were like, we can't have students living here. Like, this is a health hazard. So we have to evacuate 3 buildings worth of people, and they're all undergrad dorms. So we have to evacuate them and figure out a way to do it. So at first they put us in a hotel and they shuttled us back and forth. Important to note that my college was in the middle of fucking nowhere. So the closest hotel was 30 minutes away, and I didn't have a car. So I had to get bussed back and forth. And then they're like, the best idea is a cruise ship. So they brought an old cruise ship because we lived in the water, so there's a dock. They brought this old cruise ship to dock, and I lived in a cruise ship for a month and a half, and learned how to smuggle alcohol in my backpack, because they had campus police randomly search you. And like my friends like figured out ways to hide drugs and cigarette cartons, but they would like open your cigarette cartons and take all your cigarettes out. Like they would like search you. It sucked. It was the rooms were tiny, and the showers. It was terrible. It was the worst. But yeah, I lived in a cruise ship for a month. My first semester of college.
Wild.
Anyway, what are we watching next week?
Yeah. Speaking of cruise ships, we are talking about how Wolfman has Nards, aka the Monster Squad, a movie I grew up watching as a kid. I remember watching once a few years ago and being scandalized that this movie made for kids had a number of homophobic slurs in it at the beginning. But I am excited to revisit this one and see if I can get past that, because I couldn't when I watched it before.
And I've never seen it.
Yep.
So pardon me, correction. I've seen part of it at a dive bar. in DC before the pandemic because it was projected onto the wall. So,
hell yeah.
You know, a very valid way to watch this movie. But yes, I'm very excited to actually watch it.
Yes. And who are we talking to on Monday, Mary Beth, talking about excited?
This is a director I've loved for a very long time, and I'm very excited for chatting with him. We are talking with the writer-director Perry Blackshear. He directed They Look Like People and The Siren, and his latest film is When I Consume You, which is devastating.
It's so good. And it is out as of today, I believe.
Correct. Yes, it is out as of today. And we're talking about Pinocchio.
Wild. That's what I love about this podcast, is that you'll talk about super serious stuff and then you'll talk about Disney cartoon. That is also really kind of fucked.
But so listeners, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. Did you watch a film that we watched, read a book that we read, or played a game that we played and have thoughts? Do you have comedy, horror,
college
comedy,
stories?
horror,
hoary comedy.
Hoary comedy.
Give me some hoary comedy. Little humor with my porn.
Yeah, all right. You can send us an email at skirtflipodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And please make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe. And also, we are on YouTube right now. I'm in the process of uploading some of our old episodes up there because the integration wasn't working, but now it is. So if you want to listen, there's no video, but if you want to listen to some of our old stuff, you can now listen to some of them on YouTube.
The tubes. Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. And thank you everyone for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.